So I just got back from fantastic memes and where to find them, the Crimes of Grindelwald, and I liked it incrementally more than I liked the first one. I liked it about this much more than I liked the first one.
An address.
What's that?
A safe house in Paris.
Why would I need a safe house in Paris?
Should things at some point go terribly wrong, it's good to have a place to go.
And that's not saying much because I absolutely hate the first movie. I think it's nearly unwatchable. It's boring, it's long, it's tired, it's dated, and it's very hard to get through. So me saying that I liked this movie a tiny bit more really isn't giving it that much praise because there isn't a whole lot of praise for this movie to warrant. I will say right off the bat that the movie looks nice. I did like some technical things like the cinematography, color grading, some visual effects, and I liked most of the performances. I think all the characters from the first one coming back and all the new characters that are introduced here, their actors respectively all do a pretty good job. I even liked Eddie Redmayne more in this one than I liked him in the first one. So I did like a little bit more in this one than the last one. Plus, I think this one actually has a story, which is something the first one just doesn't have, so that was nice. But the story is also the biggest issue with this movie and houses most of my complaints. JK Rowling, as the writer of this film and the last one, has not proven here that she is any better than what she did in the first one. Here, it just seems like she is scrambling to make up for all the stuff she didn't explain in the first one. And because of this, the second one feels incredibly bloated, and it feels like endless exposition, which is honestly my main gripe with this movie. It is intensely boring because it is scene after scene after scene of people sitting down with our main character and explaining everything that the audience needs to know.
But I warn you, your policies of suppression and violence are pushing supporters into his arms.
I'm not interested in your warnings.
And this happens from nearly the first scene to literally the last scene. It is just endless scenes of people saying, this is what you need to know about this character. This is what you need to know about this character. This is what you need to know about this thing. This is what you need to know about that thing. It's just so obnoxious at a certain point, and it gets so boring. This movie is so bogged down in the details and the minutia of the world in a way that the first one should have helped with. The first one needed to expound on the ideas that it was presenting and actually build them into the world in a cohesive way that made sense. And because it doesn't do that in the first movie, the second movie has to scramble to explain stuff from the first movie and from the second movie. Because this movie is all about Grindelwald, the main villain, and in the first scene of this movie, he breaks out of prison and escapes. And the movie is all about the main characters, Eddie Redmayne and Catherine Watterson and a couple other characters that are trying to hunt down Grindelwald and stop him before something happens. And that's mainly the story. And because it's all about Grindelwald, it needs to explain him, it needs to give him character, and it needs to give him motivation, of which it doesn't do, here or in the last one. And that is something that it tries so desperately hard to do here because it was never established in the first one. The first one is all about nonsense. It's about animals that run around and Eddie Redmayne trying to catch them, and then Grindelwald shows up in the last scene. And you never get to know who he is, the Grindelwald. You never get to learn what he's all about, and you never get to see his ideals or hear what he's trying to accomplish. You don't see his motivation. So in this movie, they need to set all of that up, and they try so desperately to do that. And by doing that, they crowd the movie with so many characters that it is cutting between like 4 or 5 separate subplots at a certain point. In each one of these subplots, something different is happening with other characters. So you need to know what that subplot is about, what characters are in it, and what motivations that subplot has for each and every single one. You have one with Ezra Miller and Nagini, which is bizarre, the snake from Harry Potter. You have one with Eddie Redmayne and the comic relief and Catherine Watterson. You have one with Grindelwald and his little merry band of misfits. You have one with the love interest for the fat comic relief. You have one for Dumbledore. You have so many different subplots that the movie is trying to juggle simultaneously, and it ends up dropping the ball on each and every one because no one is more interesting than the other. No one story takes the A story and none take the B story and so on. They just all are on the A story. So none of them are interesting and none of them feel more important than the other one.
The clock is ticking faster. My dream, we who live for truth, for love. Nagini. The moment has come to take our rightful place in the world.
There are so many characters that it introduces that have no motivation, you don't even know why they're there, and they don't do anything. Like Nagini, for example, Ezra Miller's sidekick, is just in the movie because fans know what Nagini is. She doesn't do anything. She walks around with Ezra Miller, and then that's it. That's all her character is. You never get to know her, you never get to learn about her, and you never barely hear her talk. It's insane. And another new character that's introduced is Luna, whatever, Lestrange, who is like a central part of this movie's story. And you don't know anything about her outside of a contrived exposition scene that she has at the end of the movie, literally explaining every detail of her backstory and the plot twist of the movie. It doesn't establish anything new about the characters, they don't have any arcs, and they completely retcon the first one by just saying, he remembers things. The non-magic character from the first one that got his mind wiped, actually it didn't wipe, haha. You thought it did, you dumb audience, which is the most lazy way it could have possibly done that. And not only are the main characters that are coming over from the first movie not interesting, but every single one of the new characters they introduce are also not interesting. They had this whole thing, this whole marketing ploy around Grindelwald and Johnny Depp and how he's a charismatic villain that you understand and you kind of side with.
Now that he's escaped, his legion of followers is growing.
And he's got the Elder Wand, the most powerful wand of all time. So yeah, it's not great.
He makes Voldemort look like a pygmy puff.
But you don't, because you don't know what he wants. From the first scene in the movie, you have no clue what this guy is about. And even as he's giving his villain monologue to end the movie, you still don't know what he wants. He just keeps saying, wizards will rule. I will get all the wizards to rule. But then other people are saying, like, it's only pure blood wizards that have only been wizards in their lineage that are with him, but then there's some that aren't. And he says that he actually isn't trying to make wizards rule over people that aren't wizards, but he's just trying to stop atomic war that's coming from World War II. So his motivation doesn't make any sense. You don't learn anything about him until the last 15 minutes, and for the rest of the movie, he literally stands in an apartment and does absolutely nothing. This is just one of the most flawed screenplays I've seen this year. If it weren't for the big budget nature of the movie, the talent behind the camera and in front of the camera, this would have been one of the worst films I've seen in a long time because the script is so inherently flawed. The structure of the film is all over the place. There are so many things that it's trying to juggle at one time, and none of them are interesting. It has so many characters it's trying to deal with from the first and from this one that none of them are interesting. It can't set up motivation for any of them, and the villain is so poorly developed that I don't care what he does in the next movie. I don't care about him in the next movie. And for those reasons, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10. And it's not looking good for this trilogy. It's really not. So, I don't even know, man. it's crazy. This is craziness. Just craziness.